Hello, my name is Maria, and welcome to another episode of a Bookwrights House production where we delve into stories that inspire, challenge, and uplift. Today, we have the honor of introducing a remarkable spiritual leader and author, Reverend Pastor Zimany. Reverend Zimany is widely respected for his deep understanding of the scripture. His latest book, Sermons with Insights, is a powerful collection of messages that speak not only to the mind, but also to the heart. In this episode, we'll take a closer look at the stories, reflection, and divine insights that have shaped his ministry. So, whether you're tuning in from your car, your couch, or your quiet corner of the world, settle in. You won't want to miss this one. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Reverend Pastor Zimani to the show. Hi, Reverend.
Hello.
Hi, it's good to finally have you here on the show. We've been meaning to have you over, and I understand that you've been overly busy nowadays.
I don't know whether overly is the right word, but I've been keeping busy.
Well, I can see that. Anyway, to those who just tuned in and is curious about you, in a nutshell, who is Reverend Pastor Zimani?
Well, someone who grew up in Irvington, New Jersey, went to high school there, went to Princeton for college. Um,
Mm-hmm. That's
After
good.
that, was working at the Port of New York Authority as a personnel representative or as a management analyst. um, Moved on to be involved with a management consulting firm, um, and manager of management systems at the National Urban League. Um, you went through another kind of career change and ended up as professor of philosophy and religion at Blackburn College in where was it? In Carlinville, Illinois.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's impressive. Your journey has taken you through government service, the academia, and now pastoral ministry. How have these varied experiences influenced your theological outlook and the messages found in Sermons with Insight, your book?
They prompted me to work hard to get what the scripture was saying to apply to situations nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would pick the kind of passages from scripture that could make some sense if applied in some literal or figurative way to things going on in the present day world.
All right. So this is a compilation of sermons into one book. But was there a defining moment or realization that led to the decision to publish Sermons with Insight?
I guess basically I thought they were pretty good sermons. And then especially I guess after I was no longer preaching and was visiting other churches, on a Sunday morning, um, I found myself thinking, my sermons weren't bad at all, and it could be useful to have them available for people who would be interested in something like that. And I'm always wondering whether the people who are most interested in the book and who actually buy the book are clergymen or just other members of congregations who are intrigued by the kinds of topics that the book deals with.
Well, personally, I think it's for everyone because I, for one, would really want to have a copy of it because I wanna read whatever it is that you have compiled in one beautiful book. Now, is there a central theme you hope readers will carry with them after reading the entire collection?
I think the answer is no.
So there's no
All-
central theme. It's just like a bit of here and there, and then a compilation.
what's coming to mind is be a good person,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that kind of thing.
Altogether, just one message, be a good person. Now, the title Sermons with Insight implies a deeper spiritual understanding. How do you personally define insight in the context of faith? And how do you hope to evoke that in your readers?
Well, the insight is something maybe you hadn't thought about. Uh, that's that's found if you think more carefully about what the sermon is saying. And what I want my book to do is to bring those thoughts up up to the surface so that people can see how they might apply to their present day lives.
Right. Many people has been saying that this book has been described as steering call to transformation. What kind of transformation do you hope to inspire, whether it may be personal, spiritual, or even communal?
Whatever is needed. That you know, I mean, that's the answer because a lot of different kinds of people will be reading it and need different kinds of pushes in one of these directions for change. And hopefully they can find in my collection of sermons something that will move them in a direction that they ought to be going, but aren't going right at the moment.
Right. Reverend, many people today struggle to connect modern life with the ancient wisdom of Scripture. How do your sermons work to bridge that gap and make biblical truths relevant to today's world?
Well, they relate what is in the scripture to something currently going on in the real world. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
there's a, there are enough pieces of an assigned scripture for a particular Sunday that can be used to apply to present day circumstances, and those are the things that the sermon would, focus on and deal with.
Right. But which sermon in the collection was the most difficult for you to write or deliver? And what made it so challenging, if there is one? And on the flip side, which one gave you the greatest sense of fulfillment?
I can't answer either of those. Uh, I mean, really, I'm sure there were some I had harder time putting together,
Mm-hmm.
and others I was glad I did. But there were enough others that I was pleased to have done, so that I can't even pick one and say this is the best thing I've ever done because that that's not probably the case.
All right. So, what responses or feedback from your congregation or the early readers of your book have been especially meaningful to you?
I'm afraid the answer is no. That is, they would say, what you said about that particular thing, that was applying to me just recently,
Mhm.
things like that. But so that it was fortunate that those words of mine had some value for them, uh, but I can't generalize on, you know, getting feedback on my sermons in general from the congregation.
Mhm. Well, for someone picking up sermons with insight for the first time, what guidance would you offer to help them engage deeply with the material?
Read it and think about how it might apply to you right now while you're reading it, or to other times in your life when you see that the sermon was dealing with some situation that isn't a problem for you now, but how it would have been good to know about back then when it was a problem.
Right. Well, I know I may sound redundant, but can you choose one sermon that best captures the heart of the entire book?
No,
What would that sermon be?
no, I mean, I don't know the collection of sermons well enough, even to think about which ones would be the better ones. So I'm afraid that's not a useful question to be asking.
All right. So, is there a plan for a sequel or a new collection of sermons in the future?
No, um, I mean I know as a retired minister, I don't preach every Sunday anymore.
Hmm.
I am a substitute pastor, as it were, and I preach at different times. But no, I'm not planning on putting together another book of sermons.
In the near future. Well, where can they get a copy of your book? Well, I know this is available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, but where else can we get a copy of your book?
I suppose it depends where you're living. I live in the Des Moines metropolitan area in Iowa, and I do have copies of books in bookstores.
Mm-hmm.
Um, People might try going there and seeing if they could find one, or uh, asking the store owner if he knows some way of getting a book for them.
All right. Dr. Zimany, Reverend Dr. Zimany, thank you so much for your time. That brings us to the end of this deeply enriching conversation. But would you like to give a message to our listeners? Is there something that you want to put across to those who are tuning in to us right now?
If there are ways that you know you need improvement, take seriously the possibility of moving in that direction and making those improvements.
Oh, thank you so much, Reverend. Sermons with Insight isn't just a collection of words from the pulpit. It's a reflection of a life lived in service, in thought, and in truth. Whether you're reading it as a seeker, a believer, or someone in between, the wisdom it offers invite us all to reflect more deeply, live more intentionally, and walk more closely with purpose. And you can get a copy of this incredible book, Sermons with Insight, at your favorite book outlets. Reverend Zimani, thank you for sharing your heart with Journey and your insights with us today. And to our listeners, if this conversation moved you, challenged you, or gave you something to think about, we encourage you to pick up a copy of Sermons with Insight and continue the journey. Until next time, this is Maria reminding you to stay curious, stay grounded, and as always, stay inspired. Take care and God bless.